Hey everybody. So, what I'm going to do is just take you guys on a quick tour of the consoles tonight while I am editing out some gameplay footage for you guys. I'm going to try to up my production just a little bit because it's been a little cheese dick. So, we'll see what we can do to make things better, keep things interesting. Obviously, we'll do some editing so things are better to look at. Now, the first thing we're going to go to here is the Atari 2600, which came out in about 1977. Any retro collector has to have one. There's a cool story behind this one. A guy I work with gave it to me along with about 20 games because he found it in his barn, and it was his. And it's been in his mother's barn for the last 30 years, which is pretty cool, especially considering it still works. Right next to that, I have my Atari 5200, which I picked up from a friend for very cheap. But the 2600, we got one when I was probably 8 years old or so. And I was born a year before it came out. So, we got it about the same time the original NES came out. And to hear my mother to this day, we don't have it because I took it apart. And I just wanted to know how things worked. So that's why I took it apart. I also took apart her vacuum cleaner, which she still gives me shit for. I'm 43 years old and I still have to hear about it. Um, that is my Atari flashback unit. I like the mini consoles. The mini consoles are nice. They're easy to play, really quick to hook up. I don't keep all my consoles plugged in at the same time. I actually have a drawer with all my wires and cables in, and I take down each console as I want to play it and hook it up to my TV. I don't feel the need to have everything wired in at the same time. So up here I have my Intellivision, which with Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, awesome game. Cool thing about the Intellivision is, dealing with inflation. If you are considering the Atari 2600 was about roughly $500, roughly the price of a brand new Xbox One, the Intellivision would have actually been about $1,200 in today's money, counting in inflation, because, well, I honestly don't know why. It was made by Mattel, the toy company, and it was really on the high end, so I didn't even know what an Intellivision was when I was young. I had a cousin that had the ColecoVision, also cost a little bit more than the 2600, but the Intellivision had a lot of things. Like, this was actually a 16-bit. It had a voice thing that would recognize your voice. It had a lot of firsts for the gaming industry. But obviously these two here were some of the big cartridge-based systems, so that's generation 2. Coming over here, I have the Telstar Alpha and the Telstar Colortron, both in the box. The Colortron is actually my favorite thing in this entire collection because a friend gave it to me, and he actually had this since he was a child. And these are basically, they say 4 games each, but let's be realistic. Out of all 8 games, it's one game. They're Pong clones. These are made by Coleco, who also made the ColecoVision, obviously, and they're first generation game systems, meaning they don't have interchangeable cartridge. I have a couple games for my Intellivision here in the box, but I also like these little handhelds. They're dumb, but whatever. Pokemon Yahtzee, which I actually found that at a Goodwill for like $3, and a Retro Pie there. Up here we have my Game Boy Color. I just actually gave away the Game Boy XP to a friend because he was looking for one, because we have a DS upstairs and I didn't really need it. So why not? PSP picked up really cheap. It's pretty cool. Plug and play Pac-Man. Now, this Excite 25 thing, I have this weird thing for consoles that shouldn't exist, and it's a plug and play. It's basically a Famicom. A lot like the Super Joystick there that looks like a Nintendo 64 controller, although this stick doesn't actually move. Um, Again, it's just a Famicom. It has NES games on it, and it says that it has like 10,000 games, but it's actually like 200 games and then ROM hacks of those games. And there's plug and play ColecoVision game. A Fabulous Fred. Those were cheesy. Um, Back in the 90s, every kid ended up with one of these, and it's like 500 games in one, and people's parents kept buying them. And guess what? It was a clock and 200 versions of Tetris. So that's pretty funny, but everybody ended up with one. I saw it somewhere for like $1.50, so I bought it. And then I have the Intellivision plug and play right there. Some Pokemon books. We'll get to that. You know, my number card for Majora's Mask, because you have to keep your code or else you have to run that stupid mission all over. Xbox One, not mine. Actually belongs to my son. I don't own a current gen console. I really don't have any interest in them, but I'm playing Banjo-Tooie on it, so whatever. So down here we have the NES Classic. Thing's pretty great. I enjoy it. I had to get the wireless controller. The controller that comes with it is like an inch long, and it's terrible. Of course, we have a regular NES, always. I have the Retrobit Trio instead of a Super Nintendo. Here's the thing, is like the controller is primarily the same. And you can use legitimate controllers on it. Sega Genesis, NES, or Super Nintendo. And it plays all three of those cartridges. You just flip the switch here on top. I feel like these are a legitimate option. They're inexpensive and easy to hook up. They upgrade the picture. If you don't want to put out the money or you just haven't come across the right machine yet, those are a good option. They like $60, man. You can't beat that. My Nintendo 64. Got a great deal on that. I love it. It's the Fantastic Orange. Wii. I'm just starting to play a couple Wii games. My Sega Genesis. Sega Dreamcast. Now, I love the Dreamcast. Dreamcast is amazing. I actually learned how to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater on there. Shenmue was my first real experience with a disc-based RPG. And so I kind of fell in love with the slower storytelling and pacing of disc-based RPGs, because at the time you had an RPG on Nintendo 64 with cartridges, and they were faster paced, but they weren't as in depth. So there was pluses and minuses to both. I enjoyed both of them, but the Sega Dreamcast really introduced me to it. GameCube, I never really had a GameCube up until recently. I was out of gaming for a long time, but obviously had to get a GameCube. I've come to love the controller. I enjoy playing on the GameCube. Obviously, I had to get Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and beat that on there. So that I really, really enjoy the GameCube. It doesn't get enough respect. And one day I will replace that ugly little unit with the Panasonic Q. We have another Wii, which that's the one my sons use when they want to play games on the Wii, because we have a lot of Wii Sports and all that you could play as a group. Another RetroPie. Couple PS2s. I have more PS2s. I actually have 5 PlayStation 2s. Why? Because I can't stop buying the goddamn things. They're fucking cheap. And, I want to have backups. The PS2 is an amazing system, has more games than any other system, and it's just fun to play. The controllers are perfect, and especially if you get one of the big fat units, those things last forever. Uh, PlayStation 1, obviously, I have two of them sitting there for some reason, but I enjoy the PlayStation 1. PlayStation Classic. Um, these are the games that I hacked on myself. Then I bought like another 100 that cost me $20. I wasn't gonna buy the PlayStation Classic, but then it went down in price all the way to $20 around Prime Day, and I bought it then. And it was totally worth the $20. I would go out and buy 5 more right now and give them to people as gifts. They were not worth it as $100, but at $5, I mean $20, totally worth it. PlayStation 2, I already talked about. PlayStation 3. I enjoy the PlayStation 3. I have the Fat Boy. That's backwards compatible with the PS2. Has all the memory card slots and blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows what a PS3 can do. And we have the OG Xbox. This is probably the third one I owned. The first one was taken in Hurricane Katrina. If you're going to play the OG Xbox, you got to use the Duke. This controller is absurd. Look at the size of this thing. Look at the size of it compared to an Xbox One controller. It is giant and bulky, and what a piece of crap, and totally awesome because it's perfect for that Xbox, by the way, which is by far the heaviest console I own. 360, newest console I have. It's a cool console. I don't play a lot of games on it. I have, maybe 30 games for it, but I don't play it a lot. I tend to play the older stuff. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll move into the current gen situation, but I think if I do that, I'm going to go with a Nintendo Switch. Wii U is also high on my list to get a hold of. Just, it'll happen. Ocarina. Yeah. Okay, so Tony Hawk ride board, drums, blah, blah, blah. Wii Fit board, steering wheels. Anyway, thanks for checking it out. Let me know what you think. Please send comments.